Bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite. Você gosta de pizza?
I've had over 40 pizzas in the last 30 days.
Você gosta de motos? Talvez você vai gostar desse vídeo. Hey folks, my name is Sumido and welcome to my review of Radikal Bikers. Radikal Bikers is a racing game released by Gaelco in 1998. It tasked you with racing your opponent through the streets of Italy in an effort to deliver fresh, hot pizza before they do. Radikal Bikers puts you behind the wheel of an Italjet dragster as you race against the clock and an AI or human opponent to deliver pizza on segmented tracks. Complete a track, and you get to enter your name on the high scoreboard. Win all 3 tracks, and you get to watch the game's credits. Each track is split into 4 segments, and you don't need to beat your opponent to progress to the next segment. Along the way, you'll encounter various power-ups. The 2 most common ones are High Speed, which gives you a brief increase in speed, and Power Kick, which allows you to automatically knock traffic out of your way temporarily. Other power-ups include Extra Time, Bonus Points, and the Joker, which grants you a random power-up. Attaining these power-ups will often mean jumping off ramps, which necessitates pushing down. This makes you pop a wheelie and gain increased altitude when making jumps. You'll also find power-ups scattered in various shortcuts laid throughout a given level, and these will be necessary to beat your opponent, or even just finish a level. Radikal Bikers features 4 playable characters, Gino, Sofia, Nina, and Carlo. All of them play the same, so pick whomstever you like. Now let's talk about the levels. There's 3 of them. The first level is Margherita, the easy level of the game set in Milan. The first segment of this level has you gliding through loose turns and easy to spot shortcuts. The hardest turn you'll be making is a U-turn about halfway through the segment, which is the only part of the game you'll need to apply the brakes. The second segment of this level leads you through a more industrial area as you glide through more easy turns in the sewers. Aside from some minor traffic-based obstacles, this segment is also quite easy. The third segment of this level keeps up the industrial theme, though this time the turns are a bit tighter and the traffic a bit heavier, but overall, still easy to navigate. The final segment of this level is the first segment but in reverse. This time around, the traffic is thicker than a bowl of oatmeal, and that makes it painstakingly difficult to navigate, but not impossible to complete. Now on to the medium difficulty level. Capricciosa! Set in Rome, you hit the ground running in this first segment as you weave through bends and twists tighter than anything you saw in Margherita. Your path is quite narrow, so you'll have to navigate carefully to both catch power-ups and not collide with traffic. The second segment of this level is a lot easier to deal with given that it's more open. The path takes you through a nature reserve which is abundant with both power-ups and shortcuts. The worst you'll be dealing with in this segment is this narrow section and the odd 90-degree turn. The third segment of this level keeps up with a natural environment and a wide, easy path to follow. Towards the end of the segment, you'll re-enter an urban environment with goodies galore. Finally, the last segment of this level is just the first segment in reverse, so not much to say there. Now we come to the final level. Diabola! Set in Naples, this level's first segment begins in heavy traffic as you struggle to get some breathing room in between narrow, jagged turns. If you're lucky enough to catch them, definitely make use of the few shortcuts this segment has to offer. The second segment of this level is more straightforward, but hinders you with various environmental and automotive obstacles as you make your way through a shipyard. Breaking tradition, the third segment of this level immediately turns you around towards the beginning of the level. This segment is a bit easier in reverse since the shortcuts are more readily accessible. Finally, the final segment of this level puts you on the home stretch. Again, not much to say here except that you may find yourself skirting past checkpoints by the skin of your teeth. And there you have it, there's Radikal Bikers. If it wasn't apparent, the AI is very unforgiving in this game, and you'll have to utilize every shortcut in the game to get the slightest lead on them. That aside, the controls are snappy and responsive, and the difficulty scales very naturally. For these reasons, I give Radikal Bikers gameplay a 4 out of 5 stars. Radikal Bikers is unique in that it utilizes in-house hardware developed by Gaelco. It runs on a 32-bit processor and custom graphics hardware. The graphics are quite impressive for a budget arcade game of the era, featuring detailed textures, a lengthy draw distance, and a frame rate which never once drops in spite of all the action going on around you. On that same note, I appreciate how lively this game is. From the environments filled with pedestrians, workers, animals, and cars, you really get the impression you're in the game's world. I find it cool how all the text in this game's levels is in Italian, even if it is basic. I also think the game's cartoony aesthetic has helped the graphics age more gracefully as time goes on. If you can finagle it, this game looks its best on a CRT display, as that is what it originally ran on, but if you have to play this on a more modern display, that works fine as well. I should note that, as of MAME version 0.253, this game's graphics are imperfectly emulated. From what I could tell, there are some extremely minor graphical glitches you'll encounter when emulating this game, particularly when you come to a full stop. Overall, I give Radikal Bikers graphics a 4 out of 5 stars. Just as Radikal Bikers graphics immerse you in its world, so does the sound. From the varied traffic cars, to the slapstick noises, to kicking dogs. This game's sound encapsulates you in a zany, cartoony landscape, but perhaps the best part of this game is the soundtrack. Now, there's only 2 songs you'll ever hear playing in this game, so I'll give you folks an extended listen.
Living on my own, waiting by the phone. Pizza's going home. I'm the pizza man. Who is gonna ride? Choose a cheese and fly. Make it there on time. I'm the pizza man. We don't try. Filter free. Select your bite and ride. What cheese? What beer? What cheese? Welcome mozzarella. Get out of my way. I'm a radical biker. Get out of my way. I'm a radical man. Get out of my way. I'm a radical biker. Get out of my way. I'm a radical man. Oh, pepperoni. What cheese? Mozzarella. What beer? Mozzarella. What cheese? Cabbage-osa. What beer? Vegetarian. What cheese? Cosa Nostra. What beer? And the panzoni. Mozzarella. We deliver rain or shine. Fast, free delivery. Delivery on time. Delivery time.
Great pair of tits.
Time delivery. The best Italian pizza. The finest ingredients.
And look at
Try one
Mary.
speciality and pineapple tea.
You got it.
Crazy right now. Crazy, crazy right now. Crazy right now. Crazy right now. Crazy right now. Just to look out, he's the king of the sidewalk. He's gonna put you away, no matter how he flies off to the garage. Streets of the city as a training track. He rides his bike like a devil in hell. He's a surprising guy in every corner. He always skates, walking on the grass. He's the king on the street. He's gonna push you away. He's the king on the street. He's gonna push you away. He's the king on the street. He's gonna push you away. He's the king on the street. He's gonna push you away. You can't stop him. You might be happy. Say I'm not this way. You can't stop him. You might be far with him. But you're night and day. He's the king on the street. He's gotta push you away. Come on. He's the king on the street. He's gotta push you away. Come on.
I can't be the only one who thinks someone audibly yells, "fuck yeah," in that first song, right?
Fuck yeah.
Overall, I give Radikal Bikers sound a 4 out of 5 stars. With all the other elements of this game having been judged, I give Radikal Bikers a 4 out of 5 stars. It's an interesting and fun little title that is easy to pick up and play, but hard to master. The difficulty scales quite nicely, and the graphics and sound both work in tandem to bring you into the toony Italian world that is Radikal Bikers. While this game is enjoyable to play by itself, I can't help but wonder if it would be even better playing with someone else. Now it's time to determine this game's SSRP, or Sumido's suggested retail price. If you found a Radikal Bikers cabinet out in the wild, how much should you pay for one play? At most, I'd be willing to put $1 in this game for one play. Let the previously discussed gameplay elements be a testament to that. So, what can you do after having played all there is to play in Radikal Bikers? You can try turning around and see what happens. This results in the game automatically correcting your course, but if you're persistent, the game eventually gives up. Surprisingly, the game draws quite a bit behind you despite the fact you'd never ordinarily think to even venture back here. All levels seem to be centered around a hub that is the roundabout from the game's intro. Margarita's first segment contains 2 paths that lead to nowhere. The second segment goes back a surprising amount before hitting an invisible wall. The third segment doesn't go back very far before hitting an invisible wall. Finally, the most interesting segment in this level is the final one, where you can go back into the graveyard area a significant distance and traverse a small circular invisible area. Notably, there is a tunnel that you cannot access, and I believe it leads to the tunnel section later in the segment. However, another invisible wall blocks that off as well. Capricciosa's first segment leads to both the beginning of Margarita's and a path to nowhere. The second segment is interesting in that the auto-reverse mechanic is more stingy here, so you'll have difficulty getting all the way out of bounds. I had to turn on infinite times to counter the auto-reverses and, well, this happened. The third segment doesn't let you go far before smacking you in the face with an invisible wall. The fourth segment is kinda neat, not only because you can venture back significantly, but you also catch a glimpse of this texture pop into view, which actually appears later in the segment during normal gameplay. Finally, Diabola's first segment leads you again to the beginning of Margarita and a dead end. The second segment doesn't go back very far, but it gives you a good glimpse of a half-baked cruise ship. The third segment lets you ride around the lighthouse and bask in what is either supposed to be a shadow or a graphical glitch. The final segment of this level is a bit difficult to navigate, again due to the auto-reverse mechanic. If you can manage, the level eventually undraws itself past a certain distance, meaning you'll have to drive blind before snapping back to reality. And in case you're curious, no, you can't explore that little section over there. I should note that the version of Radikal Bikers you've been watching in this video is the original European release by Gaelco. There's also an Atari licensed version of the game that was released in the US. Aside from an Atari Games logo in the intro, it has no differences to the original game. They even kept in metric units, surprisingly. There's also a Japanese version of this game which was apparently licensed by SNK, but the only pictures I found of one powered on displayed an Atari Games logo, meaning the game may be a copy of the American release, or that could just be a Japanese cabinet with an American ROM in it. I'd like to point out that the Europeans got a cool alien-looking cabinet, and the Japanese got a respectable dedicated one, while we Americans got what is essentially a generic arcade one-up cabinet. Also note this little oddity on the European flyer. It's a quote reading, "We know what happens to people who stay in the middle of the road. They get run over." This quote is attributed to Aneurin Bevan, who was a Welsh politician noted for spearheading the creation of the British National Health Service while he was the Minister of Health. Radikal Bikers saw a home release on the Sony PlayStation in 1999 exclusively in Europe. Developed by Bit Managers, this port features a load of extra content including bikes, characters, levels, music, and power-ups. Its most distinct feature is its Radical mode, where you must simultaneously beat your opponent and attempt to keep your pizza as intact as possible by not colliding with cars or other objects, while also collecting food items. This mode also allows you to purchase new bikes and access levels not found in the arcade version. Interestingly, some of the level layouts have been modified, perhaps due to hardware limitations. Also, this game features a tiny bit of censorship in that the zombies in segment 3 of Margarita stay in one piece rather than gibbing on impact. Seriously, how do you justify these heckin' chonkers but not what is essentially a Lego minifigure coming apart? Unfortunately, Radikal Bikers on the PlayStation suffers from stiff controls and overall is a watered down port that I cannot recommend. Somewhere around the turn of the millennium, Bit Managers was also developing a Game Boy Color port of Radikal Bikers, but it was never officially released. It was an isometric twist on the game with all the features we know and love still incorporated. This port had a prototype leaked which is fully playable, suggesting the port was cancelled late in development. At some point in time, it appears Gaelco was also considering making a Radikal Bikers 2, as suggested by the Spanish website. Ultimately, the game never went beyond a conceptual stage, and all we are left with is character concept art, some of which shows that characters from the PlayStation port of Radikal Bikers were due to return. If for some reason you're a mad lad who wants a Radikal Bikers arcade cabinet, you shouldn't have too much trouble locating one. At any given time, there seems to be a cabinet or PCB available in either North America or Europe. Funny enough, this game seems to have had some popularity in Italy, judging by how many Italian listings I've seen for this game. At the time of this video being posted in April 2023, there is a US cabinet for sale in Fraser, Michigan for $2,995 burger bucks. On one hand, it features an LCD screen and comes with free freight shipping. However, I must say this price is quite steep. Typically a Radikal Bikers cabinet sells for hundreds, not thousands. For 1,195 burger bucks, CoinOpPartsEtc.com is offering a refurbished US cabinet, and it still appears to be available. Rec Room Amusements may be offering a cabinet for 895 Canuck bucks, but it only appears on their special when lit section, so you'll need to email them to confirm if they still have it. Otherwise, CoinOpParts.com is offering a PCB in as-is condition for 235 burger bucks. For 275 burger bucks total, there is a PCB in Scottsboro, Alabama. Note it is being sold as is, and was retrieved from a damaged cabinet. For about 164 burger bucks, there is a PCB for sale in Italy, used but said to be in perfect condition. It cannot be delivered to the US. Well, that about wraps up my review of Radikal Bikers. I would appreciate your feedback of this review. In particular, please let me know how I can improve in the future, and if there's a particular game you'd like to see me review. And until next time, tenham bom dia e uma boa noite.